Jason Robertson is on the verge of an offensive explosion. The halfway point in the season is here as the Stars take on Nashville in Chicago over the weekend, and the Texas Stars have plenty of All-Stars headed to the AHL All-Star Game. Plenty to get into. Let's jump into it next on Locked On Stars.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan and play-by-play voice of the Chippewa Steel. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. Game number 41 tonight against the Nashville Predators. The Dallas Stars wrapping up this 10-game stretch I've been talking about over the past few weeks, hopefully with a few W's to wrap up the weekend. We will preview the Predators and Blackhawks. We'll also touch on the Texas Stars, who have quite a few representatives in the AHL All-Star Game. Not one, not two, but three. The two are obvious. The other one may not be. You'll have to find out a little later on today in the episode. But we need to talk about Jason Robertson. I think he's on the verge of having a coming out party for the rest of January. He is cooking, and it just seems like he's ready to explode offensively, which is a great sign for the Dallas Stars. I don't have to tell you that. So let's jump into all this goodness we have on a Friday. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app, use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. So, Jason Robertson has now scored in 3 straight games. He's getting back to his usual self, and I would say we're seeing a bit more of the characteristics of what has made Robertson so good in his young career. But 3 straight games with a goal. He's shooting more. Even on the power play, he looks a bit more engaged. Maybe it was due to the fact that Minnesota was just not very good at all. But either way, Robertson playing well is a great sign for the Dallas Stars. And I have to throw a few of these numbers at you because it's pretty remarkable what the Stars have done, including him. With his 15th goal of the season against Minnesota the other night, the Stars now have 4 skaters with 15 goals this season. And that is the most of any team in the National Hockey League currently. And that is the most a Stars team has had through 40 games played in a season. So pretty remarkable that the Stars have had such a balanced offense, and Robertson really hasn't had a breakout at all. And if you look among the league leaders in all offensive statistics, the Stars don't jump off the page to you. They just don't, because they have a balance of scoring. But lately, especially in the last month, he's been really good. 17 points in his last 14 games. And if you put that up and rank it amongst the NHL's best, McKinnon leads the way with 30. And you have to go all the way down to 18th before you find Robertson with 17 points in the last 14 games. But for him being in that conversation is good just because he is not playing a ton of minutes. It's not like a few seasons ago when they were relying heavily on that top line. They have a much more balanced attack. The fourth line's playing more. Of course, Duchesne's line has been the best so far this season. So DeBoer does have the ability to not have Robertson shoulder this offensive load. But it's even better now because teams may be keying in on the Duchesne line or having to worry about so many other factors within a game. Robertson is starting to get free, and he's starting to do more of those Robertson things, getting into the interior. He's been a bit more slippery and getting to his shooting spots. The goal he scored against, I believe it was Montreal or maybe been Nashville, where he got it to his forehand and went upstairs, was so pretty. And just seeing that confidence exude from him is spectacular. And he also has 5 multi-point games in those last 14 games. So he's doing it all. And it's not just multi-goal efforts, of course. He's facilitating the puck. He's been great in terms of facilitating on the power play. Even though he's not scoring at a high clip right now on the man advantage, he's able to make things happen. Of course, he's the Dallas Stars leading scorer, has 41 points in 40 games. He leads the team with 26 assists. So he's making things happen. And I think he's really going to break out here in the final few weeks of January. And I think that's just so great. Also, an interesting note, most career goals through 250 career NHL games. This is by U.S.-born players. Jason Robertson slots in there with 119 goals in his first 250 games. That trails Joe Mullen, Kevin Stevens, Roenick, Matthews, and Carson. A few of the guys I mentioned yesterday, if you're an everydayer, you heard me talk about Joe Pavelski as he inches his way into the top 5 of scores by U.S.-born players. So Robertson is already up to 119 career goals in 250 games. And I was also trying to make some context out of that to see what that would be over a longer stretch or how that would play out further along. So I came across this as well. So the fewest games to 250 career goals. So Robertson, of course, is 131 away from that. Wayne Gretzky has the lead at 302. I don't know if anybody's going to touch that. Robertson sure as heck won't. But Austin Matthews in the modern era is the closest. I guess Ovechkin is also a modern era. He slides in at 6th at 366 games. Matthews did it in 397. Robo is not quite on that pace, but he'll be, I think, kind of in that conversation. And, you know, scoring 40 goals in back-to-back games, it's pretty remarkable what he did to begin last season. He had like 18 goals. I think it was 17 in the first 20 games. It took him 40 to get to 15 this season. So, of course, he's not scoring at a clip like he did, but he always has those streaks where he just goes on a blaze. And right now we're at the infancy of it. And it looks like he's going to continue just torching opposing defenses. And I think that's a great sign. And we have to show some love to Robertson when he's, not having the goal scoring, pretty numbers that we have seen the past few years, but he's been effective, and I've been critical of him too. I would like to see him do a bit more and be more engaging. Absolutely. But also he is the leading scorer on the Dallas Stars, and he's making things happen. His line's been so good. Roope's been phenomenal, of course, recently. He has 17 goals, which leads the way for the Dallas Stars. But Robertson is doing his share. He absolutely is. Has 17 even strength points. He has 11 even strength goals. So he's doing it at 5-on-5. He's not having as quite of a dominating factor on the power play in terms of points this season, but he's still shooting the puck a lot, which is a good sign. 119 shots. Remember when Sagan was scoring in his prime, I guess you could say, in his mid-20s, he always led the Stars in shots. He was always amongst the leaders in the NHL in terms of shots. And Robertson is up there currently with 119. If you look over these last 14 games, the shots on goals numbers, Robertson comes in at, 12 at 54. So he inches up a bit more. And of course, the Stars are a bit more balanced. They don't rely on your top guys as much as like McKinnon is, who has 30 points. Granted, if McKinnon was on the Dallas Stars, I would play him 25 minutes a night. You would not see me complaining, but they were playing him a ton recently, and along with the other big boys. So he's going to get a lot more opportunities. And the Stars have blown out the Wild a few times here recently, and they've played some close games that he's getting a bit more time on ice in terms of the 6-on-5 opportunities he's had. So he is producing a bit more in some of these key situations, and the Stars need Robertson to be his best. He cannot have a quiet series like he did against Minnesota last year. And I'm always the first to say, I don't really care who's scoring I don't really care what you're doing as long as the Stars are winning come postseason time. But man, it is a hell of a lot easier when Robertson is one of your best players. That means things are going well. He was really good in the Vegas series. Unfortunately, that one kind of was nipped in the bud really quickly. Did not have a great series against Seattle. Was okay. Had a much better series than he did against Minnesota. But the Stars cannot have that type of kind of no-show effort, so to speak. And not effort because the effort's there. Just no-show in terms of productivity, because if he's rolling, man, a lot of things are going well for the Dallas Stars. So Jason Robertson, 14 games over this past month, 17 points, goals in 3 straight games. He's starting to cook, and he's on the verge of doing something really, really awesome here in the month of January. I think that's great, especially with the key injuries that the Stars have had with Miro and Otter. They've had to outscore some of their problems, and Robertson can outscore a lot of them. He is so deadly. So good to see him rolling. And it's funny because we're sitting here at game 40, about to hit the midway point tonight, and he's got 15 goals and a down goal scoring year for Robertson in the terms of his career. I would not be surprised if he got to 40. I really wouldn't. And he leads the Stars in goals once again. That's going to be a tough task. I think he'll breeze to 30. He'll be on the heels of 40. That's kind of his game. He just gets on these streaks and he'll pop a few hat tricks in there probably. And we'll be singing the praises of number 21. Hopefully he can help the Stars this weekend, taking on the Predators in Chicago. Let's go ahead and preview this back-to-back tonight and tomorrow as the Stars try to finish off this week with 4 wins after shellacking the Wild. We'll do that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Sleeper. It is the halfway point in the season tonight. There's been a ton of highs and lows recently, Stars fans, but regardless of where the Stars are in the current standings, they are third in the Central Division. I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey. You have such great sports on this weekend. The NFL playoffs are here. The NHL is in full swing. You have the NBA, but don't forget about daily fantasy hockey, Stars fans. You can connect with other fans while you play, and all you got to do is pick studs like your Jason Robertson, who are a point per game player, even Roope Hintz, who's on a tear recently. And you can do more or less on certain sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, if you want to throw some money on Wedgwood. And if you correctly predict the outcome of 8 of those stats on the more or less projections, you could win 100 times your bet on Sleeper. You heard me correctly, Stars fans, 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention, nail those picks, and you can start winning big this weekend. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and with location availability. So the Stars have a chance to finish off this weekend with 2 more wins, and I wanted to put a bit of a bow here on this last 10-game stretch for the Dallas Stars, which I mentioned before the new year. And if you've been in every day or you've heard me talk about this stretch where 7 out of the 10 were against Central Division opponents, 8 out of the 10 were, I believe, non-playoff teams. I think it was about 6 or something like that. And this was key, even with Otter out, that the Stars needed to pick up points so they could keep pace in the Central Division. It has not gone quite as smoothly as they would have liked. Currently, they are 4-3-1 so far in the 8 games. And of course, they play games 9 and 10 here this weekend. And they've dropped some ones they should have won. The Montreal game is a really bad loss. Colorado is not a good loss when you're up 2, even though you lost Miro Heiskanen in that one. There was a few losses and duds you would have liked to see right. Nashville, another one. But all things considered, they've taken 9 points out of 20 so far up for grabs. And of course, 20 is including the games this weekend. So they have the possibility of taking 13 out of the 20 points. I don't know if I'm really gung-ho on that or like, yippee. But with Otter being out, Pete DeBoer forced to ride Wedgwood really hard and hang on to him as long as he can before he got tired. And the last 2 games, you could see it was wearing on Wedgwood. He wasn't as sharp as he would have liked to be, but I get it. You're trying to ride your backup with Murray. You wanted to give him a nice start, and they certainly did, picking up his first career shutout. And then Miro goes down. You're kind of reeling from those effects against Nashville still. That wasn't a pretty game. Now you have a chance to get some revenge here against the Predators. They really got to shut down Philip Forsberg tonight in that top line, including Ryan O'Reilly. They just ran amok on the Dallas Stars, especially against the pairing of Lindell and Hakanpää. They need to be much better at 5-on-5. I think they found a formula after that game. They kind of picked up their bootstraps and were like, okay, we need to reset because, yes, it's a huge blow losing your number one defenseman and number one overall player, but there's a response we can have and be a lot better. And they were really tight defensively against Minnesota. I don't put a whole lot of stock in those 2 games either. I mean, they just completely had nothing, and they were hurt. And Minnesota was losing a lot of guys, even though I have already basked in the glory, and I will continue to do so. That's just not a very good team at this point. But they sit heading into tonight's game, 24-11-5 record, 53 points in the Central Division. As I mentioned, this 10-game stretch, 4-3-1 so far. They really, really need to pick up 4 points this weekend to have a good 10-game stretch. It's not great by any means. I would probably say meh would be my theme over the last 10. I would have liked them to do a lot more damage against some teams, but they're 2-0 already this season against Chicago. Bedard's out now, so that really hurts. Not going to be much of a contest, I would think. But Nashville, they got some fight in. I like their team. Of course, they're in a wild card spot right now. They have a lot of veterans. They just have a good presence about them. And their young players are playing really super good. Tomasino, I really, really like for them. There's another big guy on that line. I can't remember off the top of my head. Anyways, they have a few nice pieces. And Forsberg had himself a night against the Stars in Dallas the other week. So Stars have a chance for some revenge. And this is a great weekend back to back. It looks like Otter's going to be back. Can't believe I waited this long to say that. I think Otter's going to be back. You're going to know probably by the time you're watching this on YouTube. Maybe not if you're listening early in the morning here on Friday. We should know if Otter's back. Matt Murray was loaned back down to the AHL, and the rumblings from the AAC, this was not just a salary cap move. So Otter could be back getting a start this weekend. I wonder who he gets it against. He's been really good in Nashville before, but you may want to play him in Chicago against the easier opponent. It would be a bit more of a breeze, so to speak. So we'll see. Stars are at home on Friday, though, or tonight, excuse me. I kind of forgot about that. They're on the road Saturday, so they do have a home game tonight. Maybe you want to get Otter there in the front end of a back-to-back, but maybe it'll be a bit easier on Saturday. Who knows? And Wedgwood was really, I mean, to be honest, had a night off. he was chilling on Wednesday against Minnesota, so he should be fresh no matter what. Either way, that is great news. So we'll wait to hear a bit more information on that, but it looks like Otter at least may be back this weekend, which is phenomenal news. And hopefully he's 150% and ready for this home stretch, because the Stars need to make up some ground. They need some help from around the league, but a big back-to-back against the Predators tonight, marking the halfway point in the season, and they jump right back to it in Chicago on Saturday. I will not be able to do any coverage or an episode post-game, unfortunately, excuse me. I'll be on a long little road trip myself this weekend, headed to Springfield, Illinois. So a long bus ride. I'm not too excited about it, but I am excited to call some games. So I'll be a bit busy, but I'll be sure taking in all the action this weekend, and we'll have an episode for you on Monday talking about it all. Hopefully a few W's. Speaking of something we must talk about, those Texas Stars are sending a trio of All-Stars to the AHL All-Star Game. You probably already know a few of the answers. I'm going to tell you the other in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Jace Medical. I know we come to sports to escape from the crazy realities of our real life, but let's just talk a minute about preparing for real life. According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of one of the worst flu seasons in over a decade. And that can be scary. You don't want to imagine a loved one, a significant other, your kid gets sick, and a supply chain issue keeps you from getting them life-saving medication that they need. Thankfully, you have Jace Medical. You'll be okay. You've heard me talk about the Jace case before. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, UTIs, respiratory infections, skin infections, among many others. And this stuff, of course, can happen to any of us. Jace Case has you covered. Visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. That's the key, a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared today. Go to jacemedical.com and use code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your first order. Be sure to head to Locked On Sports Today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. It's covering the top sports stories for you with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go ahead and subscribe. Be sure to subscribe to Locked On Stars. Never miss an episode. Shout out to all you everydayers out there. It has been a wonderful week for Stars hockey. We have celebrated many things this week, especially against those rivals in the Central Division, the Minnesota Wild. But no more cakewalks the rest of the season because Minnesota is not on the schedule. Be sure to follow me on Twitter as well at JoeyTheJet19. I'm pretty active on there, just throwing crap out there. And a few of you are wonderful and like to engage me on there as well. So I always appreciate you indulging me sometimes. Okay, the Texas Stars. They've been having a wonderful season, as many of you know. I try to do some updates probably every few weeks on what's going down on the farm at Cedar Park and the goodness that is happening. A trio of Texas Stars forwards are headed to the AHL All-Star Classic in 2024. Of course, the Stars are sending Jake Oettinger to Toronto this year. But how about the Texas Stars? Mavrik Bourque and Logan Stankoven, no surprise, are all-stars. But how about the other? Matej Blumel, who played 6 games with the Stars last season, is going to the All-Star Game as well. So congrats to the wonderful Stars prospects that are having themselves some tremendous years. Let's start with Blumel. He's 23 years old, of course, has 28 points in 31 games this season. He also has a team lead 3 game-winning goals. It's the second year he's been with the Stars, and he ranks 3rd on the team with goals and points, and he also has a plus-minus rating of 12. How about that? So Matej Blumel is headed to the AHL All-Star Game. Mavrik Bourque, we've talked about him. We really need him up with the big club soon. Unfortunately, cap space has some issues. I've talked about it multiple times, but he is lighting it up. He leads the AHL with 41 points. He ranks 2nd with 26 assists and also has 15 goals. He's having an unreal year, including that 4-goal game against Grand Rapids not too long ago that I touched on as well, where he scored all 4 goals, including the OT winner. Yes, he's been incredible. He was the 30th overall pick for the Stars back in 2020. He has 93 points in 107 games for Texas. Yes, Mavrik Bourque is ready for the show. And maybe this guy is as well. Logan Stankoven. He is the prize. It feels like the prize possession that the Stars got in the second round, 47th overall. He leads all AHL rookies this season, 15 goals and 39 points as a plus 11 rating, and that's in his first 31 games with Texas. He's had an 11-game point streak, which included 16 points. That tied a franchise record for the longest point streak. Yes, he's been phenomenal. And why not show some love to the head coach of the Texas Stars, because he's also headed to the AHL All-Star Game. It's not just the trio of forwards. Texas head coach Neil Graham has been named the Central Division All-Stars for the second straight season, and that's determined by being in first place, and they are in first place at the January 1 deadline. So really, 4 members of the Texas Stars are headed to the AHL All-Star Game. A lot of great things in terms of the near future for the Stars. So congratulations, Matej Blumel, Logan Stankoven, and Mavrik Bourque. Can't wait to have a few of those boys up with the club. I think they're going to have a huge impact. Maybe not this season. Maybe they do. They may get some time here with the big boys towards the end of the season. But next year, man, whoo! If you thought this offense was good now, man, watch out. The Dallas Stars are cooking up something phenomenal down in Texas. So had to share some of that information that was released a few days ago and give them some highlights and some numbers about why they're headed to the All-Star Game. Alrighty, that wraps up today's episode. What a wonderful week of Locked On Stars. You guys have been amazing. Seriously, thank you so much for all the comments. Please be sure to like, subscribe, say your feelings about this Dallas Stars team. How do you feel at the midway point? I'd love to know your answers. How do you feel about this Dallas Stars squad after 40 games as we hit game 41 tonight against the Nashville Predators? Enjoy their rest of the weekend, your rest of the weekend. A lot of stuff. We got Dallas Stars hockey. We got the Cowboys on Sunday taking on the Packers Sunday afternoon. A lot of good stuff if you're a Dallas sports fan. Everything seems to be culminating into just a wonderful year of Dallas sports, starting with those Texas Rangers. Hopefully it can continue in football and hockey, and throw the Mavericks in there too. We want them to do well, right? Okay. Yeah, of course we do. Of course we want them to do great. Anyways, enough with the rambling. Thank you as always. Be sure, like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you on Monday. So long, Stars fans.